Okay, in this video, we're going to look at includes. Here I have an array of colors, and I'm saying colors dot includes the string value of yellow. And what this will do is it will analyze each element in the array and see if it finds yellow. And if it doesn't, it will return false. If it does, it will return true. In this case, it can't find it, so it returns false. This method can be really useful when you're running it against a conditional statement like this. Often you'll say if the array includes something or another, then do something with that. Here's another example. Does colors include blue? Yes, it does. So it returns true. However, it's important to realize that includes is optimized to only look at as many values as it needs to until it finds the one that you're asking for. So here it will have found blue at the index 1, and it will have stopped there and not even looked further, because all we care about is it included at least once. We can go a step further and add an additional parameter here, which tells it the index by which we want to start looking for this value. So this says look for blue starting at index 2. And so we have 0, 1, 2. It'll start at green and it won't find blue, so it returns false. Even though blue's there, we told it to skip over those to the second index. So if actually we changed the index to 1, then it would return true. And here we have something similar. So in JavaScript, the includes keyword was only added relatively recently in the last few years. Prior to that, the way that we had to do this was with index of. So index of works in a very similar way to includes, in that it will look through the array for this value. However, unlike includes, which just returns a Boolean true or false, index of gives us the index at which it found that value. Or if it didn't find the value, then it returns -1. So we could say something like this: colors.index of yellow is not equal to -1. And that means the same as colors.includes yellow. However, I find this far easier to understand as I'm reading through it. So I'd recommend you always use includes from here on, unless you actually need the index. But if you happen to see some legacy code that has this not equals to -1, you'll understand now why it does that. And if I change this value to blue, then it says, well, the index of blue is 1, and then if I did that down here, 1 is not equal to -1. Therefore, we could say that we found blue. Another thing to keep in mind when dealing with includes is the way in which JavaScript handles objects. In JavaScript, objects are always passed into functions by reference, which means we can have an object which looks exactly the same as one inside of our array. Here I have an example of an object where the name is Jean-Luc Picard and the shirt color is red, which looks identical to this one here in our array. However, when we compare that, it's not actually equal because objects are compared by reference in JavaScript, which is a very important thing to keep in mind. There's this whole concept, there's whole libraries written around this aspect of the language. There's one called immutable, which makes sure that you write code that prevents bugs that can be introduced if you forget about this rule. In order to show you a little bit more of how this works, let's look at this example down here. So I'm taking the object at index 2, which is this one, and I'm copying it into a variable called Jean-Luc. And then I'm consoling out and saying, is what I stored in my variable for Jean-Luc equal to the object reference at index 2 of people? And that's true, because in this case, we are comparing by the reference, and the reference is exactly the same. However, if I try to do the same thing, but do it this way, where I'm saying the reference at index 2 of people is equal to this object which looks identical, then the result is false, because this will actually compare by reference. Very important concept to remember.